Hey, I'm Kimberly Smith Austin. I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Made to Inspire podcast. I am here with my awesome and amazing co host, Misty Kerrigan. Hey, Misty.
Good morning, Kimberly. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, whenever you're listening to us. We are excited to be back. We kicked off last week with some amazing ideas about the second quarter.
Water.
What in a traditional business, Kimberly, you come from corporate. What are traditional businesses or corporate businesses doing in second quarters? Are we
They are
scrambling? Are we worrying? What are we doing?
We're working. We're constantly building the numbers, looking at where the numbers are, looking at our matrix and deciding what are our next moves, where we
Mm,
are, where we want to be. And we're planning, we're strategizing, but we're actually doing the work. That's what they're
I
doing.
love that. So you're a little bit of both, like a pilot flying a plane. You're still flying,
That's right.
but you're getting those numbers in. You're listening to the tower, and you're kind of deciding like what is our best route from here with the trends that we've already been seeing.
That's right. Even when the storm comes in, you still got to have a plan to get to the other side of that place.
And I love that. And you know what storm we're in right now? It's
What's
like
that?
in Florida, September, November. I think that's hurricane season. But for business people, April, May, June, hurricane season for us is conferences, seminars. It's like spring introduces people wanting to come back out. Well, the truth is, as you would say, Kimberly, is that if you're a business person and have a family, it's hard to travel to conferences during Christmas. There's some, but it's rare. August, kind of lower too, because kids are starting school. So as the summer starts, spring's ending, you're looking at conference after conference after conference. In fact, when we were talking this morning, I was telling you I have to finish up. I'm doing coast to coast conferences, West Coast, East Coast in June. And we decided because we're also throwing our own conference
Yes.
here in a couple of weeks, is since it's storm weather conference season, how can we connect that to, it's still time to work. It's still time to hit hit the floor running here in the second quarter.
Yes. It's so important. One of the things you said that just made me remember, I'm speaking at a conference 3 days in a row, 3 days in
Same
a
one
row
or three
this
different
month,
conferences?
And it's, yeah. But when I think about it, I'm there as a speaker, as a subject matter expert. But here's what I also know why I'm there. I'm going to make time to make connections, to meet new people, to look at how do I further advance my business,
Hmm.
because you're there. There's so much to be had and done and said during that time at a conference. So I'm excited because that's what we want to talk about today. How do you leverage that time that you're sitting in that seat or sitting in that conference venue and making the most out of it? You're learning, you're listening, but you're also leveraging so that your business continue to grow.
Because you're there as a student, but what we want to do is give you some tips too. At what level can I engage in? At what level of my business? We were talking about, there's a normal where sometimes if you're working for a company, they send you to the conference, right?
Yes.
That's the I'm gonna go and get the most out of this. And then there's kind of like the business owner sort of I'm gonna be a vendor. Like what does this look like if vendor tables are open? And then which we always promote in different episodes and even some different courses that we offer is the highest leverage is you're on that stage.
That's
You're
right.
leveraging yourself as the expert in that industry. What we want to do is kind of back it up and see, well, where are you at? Where are you at? And how can you get these quick tips that we've learned over years and years? I've been to some conferences and failed where I spent more time worrying about where I was eating for lunch or if everyone was going to go get some beer and pizza afterwards, but not making those connections that could have sped things up for my company and myself.
Sure. And Missy, before we get into the content, I want to drop something that I think is super important. I know right now you're probably listening thinking, I don't have time to go to a conference. It's tax season, it's probably just happened here on Monday, and you're thinking, wait, I just had to do my taxes. I've got so much going on. I don't have time to sit in a conference. But here's the truth. This is something we strongly believe that you make time for, because your personal professional growth and development is important. But on top of that, there are dollar signs da, 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 sitting next to you, sitting over on the other side to the left and the right of you. It's all about perspective, how you see it and how you work it.
how you showing up to it. So we got some specifics today of what do I do to even prep for a conference? What do I do? Like, how do I know which conference I want to go to? Because there's co-ed conferences, there's specific business industry conferences, there's the expo shows where it's more people are rolling out their products and their businesses for the next year. And then there's retreats, which are my favorite. And then there's some like I want to say outliers, like our conference, which is where I think a lot of conferences are switching to. I think we're one of the first up theirs, but experiential conferences.
That's
So
right.
it's not butts and seats for 8 hours. And me and Kimberly, we've been to some conferences that were 12 hours, a little bit ridiculous, where it was just so much information coming at you. You're not going to do too much with it.
Yeah.
But what we've noticed is, how do you know you're successful at a conference? Like,
Yeah.
what deems success? Like, I packed, I traveled, got the hotel, made some connections, came back home, life started over again. Was that conference worth it? How do you
It
measure
depends.
that?
I think it depends. In old days, people would go and they get fired up for that week or the first week afterwards, and then life happens and the pile keeps piling on and they go back to the normal. But I know for me, and I'm speaking me only, and what I encourage you to do, one, be a note taker. Because here's the truth: note takers are money makers. Note takers are money makers because if you take those notes, you then have a plan for implementation. How do you implement these things into your practice? If it's an accounting, if it's a productivity, if it's a wellness, depending on what it is, you have to be intentional about how you're going to use the content that you just learned. And I think that's super important.
Wow.
Even when I'm in conferences, I'm brainstorming about ways to employ them in that notepad so that I don't lose the fire when I leave. I have to put this in action so that I can leverage it and actually grow my business using these principles, because these conferences aren't cheap. I've gone to $2,000, $1,500 conferences and a day or 2 days, and they cost you a fortune. So why not make the most, get some return on that investment?
Oh, I like that. So it's looking at the return on investment. A great part about conferences too is there, if you do own your company, a little tax write-off for you. But you make a great point is, so even before you go, that preparedness, what's your best notebook? How many pens? Have your snacks, you have your water. So really looking at the things. I know I've rolled into a few conferences and been like, oh, there's a free pen. And then I'm writing on back of the little notes that they give you in the hotels, like the 4x4. And then I'm like, oh, I wish I would have brought a notebook. So really kind of starting before you even get there, the how am I going to prep for this notebook? If you do have them, business cards, uh, conversation starters,
Absolutely.
right?
I love
How
it.
you make some connections, being very clear. We're in the C's today, you'll see. Being very clear about how you're positioning yourself. What we do, quick tip. Here's a quick pro tip from us here at Made to Inspire is, if you have more than one business, be prepared with which business you want to talk about, because
Yes.
sometimes we'll overwhelm people with how much stuff we do kind of take care of, and that an overwhelmed mind does nothing. So
Yeah.
the specific why you're going to this conference for that specific business, kind of keeping it in that lane until they can make that connection. It helps people kind of start connecting you to the conversations. Oh,
That,
that's Kimberly. If Kimberly's going on one, she might come to one as a speaker, or she might come to one as a business strategist expert, or health and wealth expert. So whatever that. For myself, I do a lot in speaking, mental health. So I want to make sure, a business psychologist. So who's showing up, and where am I sticking to my experts in?
yes. I love that, Missy. That is so on point. On point. Now, let me throw an extra to go on top of that. If you're really engaged in this conference and really want to walk away with some new resources, don't talk about you. Don't talk about you at all. Talk about them, or better yet, let them talk about them. And you take that inventory and you're writing notes on it. You're keeping notes so that when you then go back to approach them for that next follow up meeting, that coffee date, or whatever you're having, then you talk a little bit about yourself and how you can support them on their journey. Maybe they're a corporation and they need a speaker. Maybe they need a business strategist. Maybe they need a mental health professional, whatever that is. But you spend the time learning. I love it because Zig Ziglar always talks about the person who's listening is the winner, the player in the room. Be a listener when you're out there. If opportunity presents itself and you need to talk about what you're doing, Misty said it. Decide which which plane you're coming from today.
I like that. Which of those jets you're landing in on?
That's right. That's right.
So we know a lot of conferences they have like usually main speakers. They got time for networking. Then they got sometimes they have the breakout rooms of which breakout room you're going into. They have the breakfasts and the pre meets. Do you suggest, Kimberly? You know, some of your conference strategies in your business. Do you come to some of those extra stuff like the meet and greet before the conference starts, or the breakfast of champions before the day where you're kind of showing up a little earlier and just meeting people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are bonus time because guess what? When you're sitting in the conference, you're not really in a position to connect and communicate with other people. You're listening. If you're not on the stage presenting, you're sitting there as a captive audience, right? They've got you in a captive state, and all you're doing is listening. So if you take the time to engage in those other quote unquote networking connection events, that's when it matters, because now not only that, when you go into the conference and you see the folks and you're able to wave. I go to an annual conference in Utah. I'm getting ready to go in a couple of weeks here, and there are probably about 5,000 people in there, but it's a wellness conference. And guess what we do? We have early morning workouts, we have connection, we have
Wow.
these pre-meals, and we have appetizers at different times. Guess who's showing up? I'm showing up to meet folks. And throughout the day, it's amazing how when you meet people, you run into the same people over and over again. I don't know how that happens. I'm like, there's
Right.
5,000 people in here. How have I run into you 7 times already?
It's that whole day like at a cruise ship or when you're on vacation at Disneyland, you're like, I just saw the people 8 times. Like
Eight
they're
times.
your brain's connected, and now you can spot them out like the Waldos. I
That's
love
right.
that. I know because sometimes some people are like, well, it might be a good time to sleep in for me, or I'm not really into the happy hour. And I noticed that these happy hours, a lot of people, the mocktails, or they're not going to get the drinks. Yeah, there's a couple people there, but those that are going usually are going to make those connections because, as we talked about, that preparedness is that intention of what do I want out of this event? Am I looking for business partners, new customers, new connections, or connections to connections? And I think a lot of times we're very tunnel vision in business, and we only think like if the person I'm speaking with, if they don't need what I have or we're not connecting, then I can move on. But what we've learned in business is the best thing you could do is connect with someone at a conference, become close to them, and then they introduce you because now you have that referral already in because they spend so much time with you. So just because you meet someone that might not be like needing what you have or on the journey yet to where you're at doesn't mean they don't know someone that like we're all separated by 6 people. So it really is making those connections so that you could continue to make connections.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Well, speaking of that, let's get into some of the tips and strategies that we think would be important for you as you build your Q2, as you work on those numbers. Again, this is a strategic approach to growing your business. Attending conferences, one, for your professional development and gain, but also building your professional development for monetary or business gain, if you will. So we've come up with what we're going to call them KPIs, if you will, your key performance indicators when it comes to what you should be doing when you go to a conference. And one of the things we talked about was having conversations. Yes, conversations, talking to people. And I think when you think about how valuable a conversation could be, remember, you're the person listening, you're asking questions, you're engaged, and you're involved. You're attending those extra events outside of the conference. This is not captive audience. This is time for engagement. So you want to make sure you're making those conversations. And if you know anything about building a business, you know that conversations basically can lead to connections, which could lead to finishing, closing deals, things of that nature. So think about how many conversations do I need in the course of a week, in the course of a month to help me reach my goal. And in this case, in the course of this quarter.
Especially in the weekend. So, and we always talked about, we have another episode on about networking tips. What to do at networking and the faux pas people have, like they just go to the people they know and they kind of stay in those conversations because it's comfortable. So, really looking at it, switching on to back some of those networking tips is don't stay with the same person all week.
Right.
Worst case, don't stay with the people you came with the entire time, 100% of your time. Get out and making those connections. And then as many people as you could kind of strike up conversations with, monitoring, and that's where we're talking about is keeping track at. How many people did I meet this weekend? How many people did I exchange information with? Those are conversations that I've started or had or just been in. A lot of times you could eat during the meals. They have the meals together, you're eating and just connecting. Oh, what do you do? How's that? One of the things I had to learn, and it was a great tip from one of the books I read, was a football possession. I don't know if you're any football fans, but in the conversation, you want them to have the possession 90% of the time. So you want to
Yeah.
hold the football every now and again, so it's not a weird conversation where they're just speaking at you. But you want to always make sure that they're in possession of the conversation 90% of the time to your 10%.
Beautiful. I love that. That is such a great analogy. I will be using that. 90% possession. And I'm not a football fan, sorry guys, at all, but I love it, but I just don't enjoy spend time doing it, whatever. So when we think about that, that's so good, Misty, because I think that is very important when we think about how to make those connections. And I think when you look at your business, think about that. So we said conversations, which in essence leads to connections. Is well, what do you mean conversation? That's one and the same. No, they're not. We can have conversations with anyone. I am the master of conversation. And I think Misty would agree. I can go anywhere and talk to anyone at any time
Bathrooms. This lady has met people in bathrooms.
in bathrooms, and that's probably not an appropriate place. But you know what? I believe that, we're people. We all have a heart, we all have blood. Why not make the most of your life? Why not win the day and say hello, give a little smile, encourage someone today? That's my motto in life. And as a result of that, I do it everywhere I go. I'm in line behind someone, I'll crack a joke that could be offensive, but because I smiled and made it fun, they welcomed it. And so think about that. That conversation you started while you were eating lunch, or that conversation you had next to the person sitting with you at the conference, by you just kind of dialoguing, but then you have an opportunity to take it to the next level. Here's what I tell people, and this is networking, but it's also part of it. When you're talking to someone, one of the things that I love, that if I enjoy the conversation, think they're a great person, good character, someone I want to stay connected with, I offer them my phone number first, because it's little like when you ask for their
Oh, I
number,
like
it's
that.
picking them up. So I offer I say, listen, I love to stay in touch. Let me give you my phone number. And I offer that to them first. And here's what typically happens. They go, oh, great. I'll take your number. Let me give you mine too. Or let me text you so you have mine as well. Because now that conversation kind of goes into, let's start connecting. And if you're in the game and you're really saying, I want to stay connected, or I want to continue this and make it a real connection, you have to initiate some sort of action. And that is, let's do a Zoom meeting. Let's meet for coffee. Let's meet at this next workshop together. Let's have lunch at the 7th hour when this other workshop is not going on. Or maybe let's go to that other special event they're hosting together. And that time together allows you to build that connection. Now, we know it's not a lifelong connection yet, but the more you invest in it, the more time, the more conversation, the more commonality that happens, it starts turning into a connection.
So I love that, and you forgot one thing that you do also is, so you give them your number, which is a great strategy. Doesn't feel uncomfortable. They exchange numbers, and then you always take a picture with them.
Yes.
You take a picture with them so that you could save it to the phone, so you know who it is, right? Because sometimes we meet a lot of people and we don't remember faces. But also the strategy with that is, once I have their picture, let's say they don't give me the number, and I say like, oh, let me send you this picture, and then you're
Yep.
able to send them the number, and then we'll go into some follow ups. But I think you made something really uncomfortable comfortable,
Yeah. And
because
you
you
know what?
don't
I
want it to
want to,
feel like you're trying to get a sale. You want it to
right.
feel like you're making a connection. You said it's kind of like dating. You're not running around trying to sleep with people. You're
Right.
running around trying to get, what's that next level? Is it a cup of
Right.
coffee? Is it a Zoom? What does that look like?
And here's the thing I want to mention today. In today's society, we're in such a digital environment that even if the phone number is an exchange, maybe it's a LinkedIn exchange or a Facebook exchange. Are you on social media? And I'm finding that that's a little less intimidating, because now you don't have their personal information. And people will now give you their LinkedIn just so you can stay connected. And now that's just as good as having a cell phone number because people live on LinkedIn. They're there all the time. So if you send them a message, more than likely they're going to respond. And here's the funny thing, you can see when they respond. If you send a text, not so much. So look at that connection as whether it's a phone number, a LinkedIn, whatever that type of contact is that creates, like I want to get to know you more, but that doesn't cause them to be like, oh, too soon, too fast.
And now let's go. This is a ninja strategy, so don't get overwhelmed. I'm gonna give it to you because I've seen it work 100 times. If they are social media like into it, and they'll have one of three, right? Facebook, LinkedIn, or like you were talking about, or LinkedIn or Instagram, right? And like, oh, are you on Insta? Are you on LinkedIn? Okay, I'm on LinkedIn. Oh, you're on LinkedIn. Let's follow each other, right? So now that we're following each other, I put our picture and I tag us. And
Mhm.
I was like, so let's say I just met Kimberly at the conference. So we're now following each other on Instagram. I put our picture, I tag her, and I say it was so amazing to meet the great Kimberly Smith Austin, and get some just talking with her. I got some great ideas. She's such an idea spreader, right? Thank you so much. Um, Now I'm going to be on her social media promoting her.
Yeah.
And what we're taught in social media classes is promote those who promote you,
Hmm.
promote those who promote you. So those are like to make some deeper connections is that I'm promoting her. She's going to promote herself even by promoting me, promoting her, which thus I know that's what I said. It sounds a little more ninja, but those start to add up. And the more that your name is promoted by others, the higher up in those CEO searches, those SO searches on even just Instagram and you wouldn't believe how many people look for people on social media platforms still. Like that hasn't
Absolutely.
gone anywhere. But that's
Absolutely.
just another way to be like, oh, I saw you on. I've had conversations like that. Oh, we're Facebook friends. I met you through this other Facebook group.
Yes.
So
And I'm like, I don't know you, but okay.
right, like so that's another thing too. Is just the connection and the yes, it's a strategy, and I love saying that it's a strategy, but it also helps someone. It's a strategy that helps by
Yeah.
promoting you on social media. It's going to help you. It's a form of branding marketing. So it's the same sort of thing. Again, it might be my strategy to connect us a little more, but I'm also putting some skin into the game in that connection, which people game knows game. What's an old saying we used to say? This Gen X, right? Game knows game. So I've seen people that just appreciate it. Like I saw you post that picture. Thanks. Like they know what I'm doing, but they're still glad I did it. I want to just say it that way.
That's good, Misty. That's really good because in today's marketplace, and you hear me say that all the time, we have to be creative. We have to be creative if we're looking at growth and expansion of our business and our brand. Some of the old school methods are not as effective, but some of the old school methods are just as effective because when you talk about relationships, conversations, making connections, which would then lead us to closing, right? The closing the deal, closing something, right? And here's the truth, close for me in my business may be different to close for you in your business. You have to assess that. That's why we want you to look at what are those KPIs? How many conversations? How many new connections from conversations do I need to make on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis? And then how many closes do I need for my business? A nonprofit that helps young children with their education, it's not necessarily selling a monetary gain right now. It may be getting new kids in the program. It depends on what your business is and determining what that close looks like. Because the more conversations you have, the more connections you have, which then gets you closer to that customer, your ideal customer avatar, allowing you to then work on closing. They say ABC, you should always be closing. ABC. And I think when you look at this model for using conferences as a strategy, it'll help you get closer to that new number.
I love that. So, and I love how because sometimes, and I don't want to say it like in the psychology that we study, sometimes women feel icky about sales or closing or just trying to quote unquote get somebody. But when you switch that mindset over to a close not being like, haha, I have your money, mwahaha, mwahaha, but hey, I have something that's going to benefit your life.
Right.
And that closes that close connection to where they trust you to want to try what it is you have, whether it's a service or a product or a business to business sort of thing. But it really is getting over yourself. And if you're still finding yourself, and I could say this because I had to go through my own journey with that. If you're still finding yourself hesitant at the close, it's because the belief in the product,
Yeah.
the belief in the service. So it goes more back to confidence. Because if I'm one lady that used to always come to Toastmasters used to always tell us this, right? If you are thirsty in the desert and I got a glass of water, you're going to want that water and you're going to pay a price for it, right? So it is that what is the thirsty in the desert they're in? Because what's your water? And it's
Right.
that really belief that they need what you have. And it would be a disservice not to offer it to them. The offer itself, in some of you, that might be the close. Whether they buy or not, a close for you might be that brazen, I'm offering them what I have, whether they take it or not. That's on them. But I know I did what I could do to help them,
Yeah.
which is offer something that I believe in.
You know what? You just made me think of two things. One thing is Robbie Motter. She's 88 years old, CEO of Global Society of Female Entrepreneurs. And one of her platforms, her biggest platform, is show up and
Hmm.
ask and ask. And here's the truth: as women professionals, we have to ask for what we want. We have to ask. Now, when you can ask for anything, you know what? No's are free. And we have to learn how to build that resilience and build all those things up to have it. But here's a mindset shift, a Jedi mind trick. Instead of thinking of it as selling someone, I want you to think of it as serving someone. Not selling, but serving someone. Our marketplace exists because there are things that people need. There are things that people need. And when you present the need to them, you're just giving them what they're asking for. And when you're in that mindset of, oh, I'm selling, oh my gosh, no, you're serving them. You're helping them get closer to the next version of themselves, closer to the goal that they established for themselves, closer to that finish line. And
Hmm.
if you don't show up and ask, it can never happen. I tell people all the time, you will always get 100% of what you ask for. And if you ask for nothing, that's exactly what you're going to get. Nothing.
Kimberly here schooling us.
So we have to get comfortable asking.
Preach.
We have to get comfortable asking. And I'll tell you, that's been a journey, especially for us women. And for that reason, I tell you, come join our podcast. Every week, we're talking about things to help you grow. We want to equip you. We want to empower you. We want to give you what you need to take that leap. And not even a leap, a baby step. The baby step, because we know those baby steps eventually will learn and jump into leaps, because now the confidence is there, the competency is there, the clarity is there, and now you're like, let's go.
Four C's.
That's it.
We told you it was a C show.
It's a
Confidence,
C show.
clarity.
I speak
So
alliteration, so I don't know how to speak anyway.
she does not. I'll attest to that. So the bottom line to increase your bottom line is when you're showing up at these events, and I love how Robbie's model is just show up and ask. But you're coming to the conferences, the seminars, or the different business meetings, or even in networking events. Remember to start putting some KPIs towards your conversations, connections, and closes.
That's right. That's right. And we want to encourage you to come back and join us every week. And if you love what you hear, subscribe. Yes, we said subscribe, but also leave a review. Leave a review. And you're going to hear me say that in the close of the show. But we think it's so important to remind you. Our hope and our prayer is that week after week, that you're getting something that's going to give you the nuggets to move forward. So like we say every week, there is something out there waiting for you.
Now go get it.